Hello, everyone.
Meaningful pause. Hello,
Aha.
everyone.
Well done. Yep. Don't think it cut out then. I think people heard you.
Hey.
Hopefully
Meaningful
people can.
pause.
Hopefully people can hear us anyway. Who knows? But we are here tonight. We're back.
Talking of meaningful pauses, sorry,
Go on.
that was brilliant. I was going to say, talking of meaningful pauses, my son is trying to get onto Overwatch. Overwatch 2 was released today. He's been trying to get on. And he's basically in one of those queues. Is like when you queue for tickets and you just get to the front of it and it puts you back to 20,000 space.
Yeah.
In the queue and then starts again and then stand over and over. He's
I
been
was-
doing that round and a half by 10 minutes.
I was rewatching one of the, I don't know if you remember, GW shut down their online store back when COVID was a thing, and then they reopened it and they did a little video of James' workshop basically going on about how, you know, that they were reopening and all this kind of stuff. It was basically a funny slant on, you know, please wait in the queue and make sure you buy your stuff when you get to the end, don't leave in your basket because it'll get disappeared, all that kind of stuff. And I was watching that. It was quite funny, only because I was watching all of his videos because I was watching the League of Votem one, which is something we'll talk about later on, but I was watching that and having a chalk to myself the other day.
I can't decide whether I think he's funny or not.
I think he is in small doses.
But I think he does. Yeah, it's mildly entertaining. Mildly entertaining. Just, everybody, welcome to Podners. You keep breaking up. I don't know whether it's because my aforementioned son is trying to get on to.
It might be your connection. Might be a bit dodgy.
What? But is it all? Okay, all right.
You'll have to ban him.
So I'll just keep talking.
Hi. Hello, Rick.
The best. So hopefully people can hear me live. Let us know in the chat if there's any problems.
Yeah, hopefully this should be.
Yeah,
okay.
let us know in the chat if there's any problems live. Hello, Rick. Yeah, so tonight we're pretty much devoting the entire. We're pretty much devoting the entire evening to Games Workshop, and they've been quite busy of late. Having not been busy for a while, but they've now been quite busy of late. So do a quick rundown of what we've been doing, and then we'll jump straight in, I think.
Yep. I mean, what we've been doing is going to be really quick, especially at least for me.
Yeah. Because you've been sitting on your arse, and that what you're doing with that paintbrush is faintly disturbing. It just looks like you're about to shove it up your nose. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Those who are podcasts can't see Pete's got a Raphael 1 maybe, or
The Raphael 3, 4,
or 0.
4
And he just I don't know what he's doing with it.
to 0.
No,
It's my chin.
no
scratching.
paintbrush needs to have that on it. Yeah, well, yes. Okay, fair enough. So what have we been doing, Pete? Well, we have started our month of Moonstone.
We have.
We're game 1 of our month of Moonstone has occurred and is available on our live stream feed thing, not on YouTube, so you can go away and look at that if you like it. And we've already got a question about Underworld Championship format. We will be answering all those very shortly, so I won't dive in and answer that now. We'll answer that shortly. We have started our Warhammer Underworld Rivals tournament, which we've put the first game out of that was an all-order clash, and actually your Blakeover girls were much better than I expected them to be.
They
and it was only by ridiculous dice rolls. That,
you rolled a lot of crits.
I just was crazy crits.
Yeah, but we will answer that in due course. Hallrat Mini says hello.
But that's
everybody.
available, and we're recording games. Hello. Yeah, we're going to record game 2 next week, which I think is an all death affair.
I think
Am I right, Pete?
Yeah, I do believe it is all death. Grimwatch versus. I can't remember who I picked now. That's how important it was to me.
You didn't go for Kanan in the end, did you?
I did write the list down. I did write them down. Where are they? Here we go. It's Grimwatch versus the Exiled Dead. Of course it is. I thought it was Kanan's Reapers for a moment there, but it's the Exiled Dead.
Yeah, I think the Exiled Dead are going to win that, but we'll see, I guess.
Yep.
I'll see, I guess. And videos we released our first thoughts on the Narwood, which has been very, very, very well watched, which is nice. And you did another one of your cut down versions. I can never remember what you call them. I've written it down on the agenda as super fast smash ups, but you don't call it that.
They're all no fuss, all action bat reps.
No fuss, not all action, just like Pete.
Yeah, it will.
And then in our future, obviously it's the month, so we've got that continuing, and then Narwood is on the horizon.
Yes.
I don't think we had a release date yet, but it's on the horizon. They've teased it, and giving us more information about it. And I guess that's as good a time as any to crash into our main topic of conversation of the evening, which I guess is going to be Narwood and Games Workshop announcements, bits, and the Nemesis format. Although I completely forgot to mention, Pete, I forgot to mention Agents Con, which actually seems like a really long time ago, and I can't believe we haven't had a live stream since we had Agents Con.
Yeah, it's true, because last Tuesday we played Underworlds, didn't we? So we did have Agents Con. Yeah. That was really good fun. It was really great.
It was. It was really nice to meet everybody. Mostly patron supporters. Well, not everybody's patron supporters. We had a couple of people come along who weren't. Really good fun, really nice, and we are going to do it again. We won't keep plugging it every week between now and next September. We are going to do it again, so who knows what format it will take, but it's going to be on. It's going to be in Market Harbour again, and it's going to be great. So if you thought, oh, maybe I should have gone, you should, and you can come along next year and eat donuts if nothing else, because there's a really nice donut shop around the corner.
Very nice donut shop as well, and the place we're hiring might actually have a bar as well.
Oh, donuts and beer. What more could you need?
Yeah.
Marius Knox says James Nerf Shop. Yes, we will come on to James Nerf Shop in a bit, but first we're going to talk Narwood.
Narwood.
And I guess the biggest shock is perhaps not the right word, but the Nemesis format was announced at the beginning of this week.
It was.
Which I think is a really great name for a format.
Nemesis.
And it's kind of effectively the Rivals Plus format that's been run so successfully out of the Bugman's Evening Clashes, and in a lot of stores, I think. Not that we ever go to stores, but I think it's been run in a lot of stores. Rivals Plus. There are a couple of differences, or at least one major difference, which is that they're not going to run. You're not going to be able to run the Essentials pack out of it. It's literally just the decks that are Rivals decks and faction cards. So for those of you who don't know, the easiest way to play is Rivals, where you just pick the cards from either the faction for the more modern warbands, just the faction cards, or you can pick one of the pre-prepared Rivals decks that Games Workshop produced, the most recent of which is the Deadly Depths. But they have also now for this Nemesis format, you'll be able to do a bit of deck building between two decks, so the faction-specific cards and one of the pre-prepared Rivals decks. It hasn't been made clear whether the White Dwarf cards are available or the White Dwarf Rival decks are available in this format. I'm going to say that they probably are, but I don't know. It hasn't been completely made clear. But it just basically means it gives you a very small card pool to deck build from, but enough synergies, or an interesting number of synergies to allow you to choose with your warband which Rivals deck will work best, or cards from which Rivals deck will work best.
Yeah.
I quite like it. It is like a slimmed down version of Championship, but still fairly easy to bring and fairly easy to buy into. You don't need to buy all the Rivals decks if you don't want to, but if you do, it does not going to give you a massive advantage. Not like Championship, where if you just turned up with your War faction specific deck, you basically had it, because the Championship players would just smash it to pieces because they have so many extra cards to choose from. So I think it's a nice way of keeping it balanced, keeping the entry price low, which is obviously really important at the moment with inflation and all that kind of stuff going on. So I think it's a good move. And I really like that it hasn't included the Essentials decks, partly because that's really confusing because that's got 60 cards and the Rival deck's got 32 cards. And also because those cards are all comparatively overpowered, so almost nobody would pick a Rivals deck. They just pick the Essentials deck.
Well, and
so
the different backs.
I think I've talked for a long time now, but for me, I think it was a really good move.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't completely clarified, but I think it's safe to assume that the Essentials deck is not going to be in there, and that's good also because the backs are different, which means you haven't got to faff around with that. You can use the newer backs with a lot of the newer war bands. I like the fact that it gets away from a pay to win sort of perspective, because I remember when I went to a very small tournament at my local GW, the Wormspat weren't out that long, and I took Wormspat and I went with a very magic heavy deck, and there was another guy there who had Wormspat, but he didn't have very many warbands, so he mostly just played with the Wormspat deck, which in Rivals isn't bad, but in Championship is terrible. And he was like, just sort of watching me play my games, he was like saying, so if I want to play these guys, I need to get, I need to get lots of other decks to play really heavy on Magic. It's like, well, if you want to play heavy on Magic, yes, but whatever you want to do, you're going to have to buy a lot more warbands. And I think that put a lot of people like us off, the whole chasing warbands and having to buy everything when you never used it. And at Agents Con, we had boxes and boxes of warbands that we were giving away. It was just like, we don't want them, we never used them, please take them. And it gets rid of that, and I like that.
It's a good reason to come to Agents Con, because we do give stuff away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. I think, I've talked about this before, I think the problem, when you have a collectible card game, you always have the problem of card chasing and stuff rotating out. But you also have the added waste, or not waste, but the added thing that you're wasting warbands as well now. You've got miniatures piling up. And, you just can't use, with the best will in the world, you can't use 50 warbands or how many there are.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite a nice way, if you're coming into it, or carrying on with it, you think, well, I can play this format, lots more people will play it, and it's, I only need to buy the warbands that I like.
Yep.
And I can just, and maybe a few extra cards if I want to, and I haven't got to keep buying in 8 warbands a time, spending, I don't know how much it worked out, £300 a year or whatever it worked out.
Which isn't the most expensive thing in the world, but when you're not that serious on it, you don't have to spend that much. It was always something a bit galling about buying a warband that you had no interest in just because there were some cards in there that were good.
I mean, it's not the most in the world, but it's easier to justify £80, or even if you don't want to get the latest fourth set, then you're looking at what amount of warbands are there? About 30 quid for warband, is it?
Yeah, around that.
You can carry on. I think that's really good. I don't know whether it will replace Championship format. That's an interesting question from Rick Sager. It's something we have talked about on the Patreon Discord. Valentin, I think, said he thought it was going to be, would see the death of Championship. Valentin, if you don't know, is the guy who runs the Straight Out of Shadespire online cam game tournament, ran it all through lockdown, and still runs the odd one. I think there's one coming up in December, I believe.
Yeah. Do check that out.
But I don't know what you think about that, Pete. Would you think Championship die?
Will Championship die? It's hard to say. It depends on what GW give official support to, I think. If they run grand clashes that are Nemesis clashes or whatever, then I suspect it'll do great. If they run Championship ones, it will probably remain the poor cousin like Rivals Plus sort of is at the minute. But I think Nemesis is going to be the way they can get much more interest in it and more bodies involved in the game. If people know, I just buy this box and I can play, or I just buy this box, this pack of cards, and I can play. That's much more appealing to a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Sterling's just popped in. Says, "Evening, gentlemen. Just popped in. I hope I didn't miss too much." No, you haven't missed very much. Us being doing on as usual. Yeah, we're all good. I think. Are you all right, Pete? You asked whether we're okay.
I've got a bit of a cold. Cold coming on, I think. But
Pete's got a bit of a cold, and his t-shirt's got a funny colour.
Yeah. It's one of those heat changing ones.
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you, Sterling. I hope you're all right too. And
one thing about the Underworlds and the Nemesis format, though, that is quite interesting is several of our patrons who have sworn off of Underworlds have kind of gone, maybe I'll look into this again. And I think that's the market they need to be looking at, is the people who are, they were a bit bummed out by Underworlds and the constant crush of releases and the card chasing and things like that and the rotation. They could probably pull a lot of those people back in with Nemesis format. I think they could stand to gain a lot from that, I think.
I think so. I think there's a lot of lapsed players in there who just thought, I can't keep justifying spending all this money, especially as most of them play other games.
Yeah.
And there aren't very many tournaments at the moment. I don't. It's interesting. just going back to what you were saying about GW support, I'm not sure there's enough players to support two versions of the game in a tournament format. I kind of feel like GW need to throw themselves behind one or other of them.
Yeah.
And I know there are people who don't agree with this, but I don't think the game is any worse for being in Nemesis format to Championship format.
I agree.
I know there are people who love deck building and love the skill of deck building, and that's not something that particularly floats my boat, but it's I think you need more time out of the game in order to do that, because you need to be able to play lots and lots of games to make sure the deck works. So I think so not only is there a financial impact, there is a time impact as well, because you do need to practice. Obviously, you need to practice as well with Nemesis format if you're going to be really good at it. You need to practice your Warhammer, but you've just got less things to tinker with, less combinations to play against, less combinations to try out. So I just think it brings down the cost overhead, it brings down the time overhead, and I think we've said before with the restricted card format with fewer cards, you actually have to play around problems a bit more. Whereas certainly America, we haven't played Championship now for at least a whole season, but the whole the whole thing with Championship format was that it was basically the deck building was designed to make the running as smooth as possible, and there was never anything to work around, because you just took all the cards that some decks at certain points of the game, you literally just, I've scored that, or now I've scored that, or now I've scored that, or I've rolled an attack, I've missed it, or now I've scored this, and you just, it was kind of like not all of it, but there was a huge front loading of the skill and the planning to what happened on the table. And I think with the restricted card formats, there are just some, like you said about the worst deck not being very good. I think there's going to be many more cards that just aren't that great until you have to work to them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, nobody in their right mind, I don't think, would have taken, in our Blade Coven game, would have taken the Supremacy card for the Blade Coven.
No.
But you managed to score that. And that's partly because I had a restricted card for, which meant I had no push cards, because I couldn't do anything about it to stop you from scoring it. But that was a definite problem for you to work out how to solve, and you solved it, which is much more interesting than maybe other cards that exist.
And I think it would even make best of threes more interesting as well, because in the Championship formats it just became, like say, a case of who lined up and started their ball rolling first and scored more glory. I feel like in a best of three, once you know and remember some of the cards your opponent has, you then have to, you'll then know what's coming a bit more, but you can't necessarily do a lot about it in that situation. For example, like the Championship thing, you haven't got distractions and things like that, whereas if you're playing Championship, you nearly always had some push tech in there and that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I
mean I feel like there was a time in the game where it was basically the first person to blink with their distraction probably lost. Do you know what I mean? It was that kind of thing where I'm holding it, I'm right in back and everything.
Yeah, and I think in Nightfall days it was basically just whoever could wipe out your opponent first. That was all it was just punch each other's face in.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'd love to hear from anybody who is a big Championship fan. Maybe we should see if we can get a man on one day to talk about it, because he's big on Championship, or at least he was last time I saw anything that he'd done. So I'd love to hear from Championship people listening to this either on YouTube after the fact or wherever. Do let us know how you think Championship will fare now that there's Nemesis out there as well.
I mean, like you said, I think it's going to depend on how much weight that GW's put behind it. If they all of their organised play packs are still Championship format, and their Grand Clashes are still Championship format, then there isn't going to be very many Nemesis games out there. But I suppose at the club level, everybody will be playing Nemesis, because it's literally, if you're in a club or a shop, you could just say, well, you only need this pack, and I mean, I guess people technically might need a core box, but
yeah, maybe
we don't know what's going to be in the new core box, whether Harrow Deep and Nether Maze will be kind of interchangeable, whether you could use a Nether Maze box.
Yeah. So that's
we don't know. Yeah. I'm just gonna. I hope they don't change it too much, because
Yeah.
the one thing I don't like about the current situation, I don't like the constant new core boxes, and if they've changed the whatever they're called, the cover hex things again.
Yeah.
I think that starts to get a bit tedious for people who perhaps don't want to buy another core box 6 months after the previous one, when they've just bought 2 more in a year, kind of thing.
I mean,
Might need to heat their house or
we don't know
pay
if
their
they're
mortgage.
yeah, we don't know if they're going to do like 2 core boxes this year. I know that they said last year their release schedule was going to be, a core box, and 6 months later there was going to be another core box. But given how much GW changed things in Underworlds like every season, there's no guarantee that's going to be the case again this time round. So I'm hoping that maybe they've gone back to just, here's Gnarlwood, and then just going to release a load of warbands. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think they will. I think they've decided that's the way to go. We've got a question that says, didn't really notice key mechanic changes between Nethermaze and Harrowdeep. No, I kind of see that as a blocked season. Like in the old days, the 2 Nethermaze warbands would have just been two warbands, and you wouldn't have got new boards and what have you, or new mechanics. You just would have got them. They do normally bring in on sort of in the October release, if you like, where we are coming up to. They do normally release some change. So I think in the first and the second box we got Magic, and then I think they brought in lethal hexes for Beastgrave.
Placeable lethal hexes, yeah.
Primacy came in, didn't it?
Yeah. And then Primacy went out again.
So I suspect there'll be some new stuff, but it will be quite nice for those people who kind of got another Maze box in particular, because I almost feel like Harrowdeep had its foot in the new world, but it still had a foot in the old world, whereas Nethermaze actually felt like a new beginning.
Yeah.
The Rivals format seemed properly bedded in. The warbands seemed pretty well balanced, fun to play and thematic on the Rivals front. So I almost feel like, although Harrowdeep technically the beginning of Rivals, I almost feel like Nethermaze has really got going.
Yeah. Yeah, Dead Hands says, good riddance to Championship. Making decks was always the worst part of the game. I mean, in the early days I really enjoyed it, but I lost the interest in it later on when we got into, I think it was during the lockdown, when they were just hammering us with releases, and there didn't seem to be like any reason to do it, because you're like, well, I can buy this box and I can build a deck, but I can't play, so what's the point?
I mean, the pandemic certainly didn't help, but I also just feel like maybe this is the difference between a competitive player and a non-competitive player, but just it was quite good fun making decks, but actually doing it repeatedly and it repeatedly changing eventually just got tedious. It's like, well, what is the point in working out what's good here? Because in three months' time, it won't be anymore, and I've wasted hours.
Yeah, and especially for us, because we were playing different warbands every week, so having to build a warband every week and that's not necessarily a normal problem for everyone to have, but it was definitely something that killed my desire upwards, sitting there week
it's funny, I
can't
actually imagine playing the game any other way, because that's the way we've always played it. I can't really imagine just playing, well, partly because we just play each other, but just turning up each week, what have you bought? I bought Gits.
Yeah.
What have you got? I bought Gits again.
Yeah. Just be like, no, I played Gits like 3 months ago. I can't play Gits again. Who am I going to play now?
I benign. No, nobody does that anymore.
No, nobody does that anymore. Apart from maybe Eric.
Yeah, maybe. So what warbands, just go off slightly, what warbands do you think we're going to see in the Gnarlwood?
That's a good question,
and
actually.
People in the comments, how many people are watching, just pop it in the comments below. What do you think we're going to see?
I'd love to see some kind of actual Nurgle warband, and I know that there is Nurgle in Warcry, in the Gnarlwood Warcry thing they brought out. I'd love to see a Nurgle demon warband, or at least a Nurgle warband that has a demon in it, whether it's a plague bearer or something like that.
Nurglings. Just a mass 9 hexes of Nurglings.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
No leader.
They could just do all the different sassy Nurglings that they've released over time, just all of those on individual bases. Yeah, I don't know what else they could do, really. It all comes down to them re-releasing old stuff. I've got no idea.
Nicky Bell's one says Sylvaneth and Siege. Funny enough, I would like both of those. I'd like some really good Sylvaneth models. I mean, the Iltharid are pretty good, but I think they're a bit bizarrely. I think they're a bit dated now.
I mean, there's nothing bizarre about that. They were really season 2, weren't they? So.
Yeah, I'd really love to see some new sculpts for the Sylvaneth. And I always want a Siege warband, and I enjoy playing Idle and I, but I don't feel like they were very well served in the game. So I would like to see them, but as you've said, I think Nurgle is probably more fitting in the setting.
We haven't seen any Storm. We didn't get any Stormcast in the last season, so I guess we're probably in for a Stormcast warband, which will be delightful.
Yeah. After you and John, or me, you and John were talking on Discord, I actually really would like to see, I don't know, they don't exist in the lore, but I would really like to see some wooden Stormcast. Sort of almost like a mix between Sylvaneth and Stormcast, because they do mix things up for Underworld. Some sort of slightly feral Stormcast, I think would be pretty cool.
I'm sure more dwarves. I think I'd like to see some dwarves of some description in there, although, I mean, there aren't many dwarves. Have we had dwarves since season 2? No, we had Thundrix in season 2, and that was it. So, but then there aren't many.
Maybe we'll get the Votar come in, and they'll be like really hard to kill.
3 hammers, 5 damage.
We'll have to do another video. I'm terribly sorry. It's a totally different universe. But, I don't know why they got Brian Blessed doing it.
Yeah, I think they got James Workshop because they couldn't afford Brian Blessed, to be honest. I don't actually honestly know what they could do now. I mean, they're going to have to revisit warbands, and they could just do anything at this point almost. I know we won't get Skaven, I know we won't get Orcs, so maybe we'll get another kind of Goblin warband, maybe some kind of Forest Goblins or something like that.
You're talking about the Goblins on the Spiders, don't they?
Yeah, Spider Riders.
People keep talking to the name. Yeah, that'd be quite cool. We haven't mentioned Cities of Sigmar.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we might get
and I think there's a fair to middling chance because of that piece of artwork that was on one of the announcements. I think that people, Sigmar looking people in the forest. And also, interestingly, some of the Dark Oath models are they've got like one of them kind of big Sigmarite type hammer. So they're almost like they've been taken from a City of Sigmar or lost when they were out on a picnic or something. And I'd be interested to see whether that means that there might actually be another City of Sigmar warband. And we know the Cities of Sigmar book is at some point in the not too distant future. They've released.
Yeah, it's almost definitely happening, isn't it? They haven't definitely
they've
said
released
it, but
bits and pieces.
There's enough out
there.
Well,
they have said things like we're working on a new range, and they showed the weapons and things off, didn't they? So it's definitely coming. So I think we will see some things, which I'm very excited about because I've always liked Empire and such like. So I'm very happy to see that. And he keeps talking about playing AOS. If I do, it'll be with Cities of Sigmar.
Go on. Maybe it'll have to be just with a bunch of grey models. So we'll just say, sod it, we'll stick a bunch of models together and we'll play a game with a load of unpainted stuff just to see if it's crap. Maybe.
Either the Sons of Behemoth to get into Underworld somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, one model.
It'll be interesting.
20 wounds.
Takes up 4 hexes. Or maybe more.
Sterling Northern asked if next time we play...
Can't hold them.
Yeah. Sterling asked if there's any chance we could play the Savage Orcs next time we play Underworlds. Well, we will be playing through the current season, the knockout tournament we've started. But after that, excuse me, maybe that'll be something we'll look at. He said, is it because they're a bit pants? I don't think they're pants, but they're definitely tricky to play. I think they're one of the trickier warbands.
Yeah, and they are weaker now because the
primacy. Not
supremacy. Mechanic. I mentioned it earlier.
Primacy
mechanic is cycled out, so they have to have primacy. They rely only on their warband cards. I quite enjoy playing them actually, but I have a feeling in the last outing you might have bought them and they didn't do very well.
I played
Or
them
maybe
against
I bought
your.
them.
No, you had the Lizard Men and I had the Savage Orcs. That was the last game we played, and I
Okay.
don't think it went well for
Right.
me. But again, I remember
No,
you
I
having
think
some rather disgusting dice. So
didn't Backtrock like roll?
I'm
roll
sure he
stupid
did
quick.
very. Yeah, I'm sure he did quite nicely. So yeah, Gav
When's
plays
the
games.
next knockout? Oh,
Yeah, Gav asks when is the next one going to be. It's going to be on Tuesday next week. At this
it
time.
is Tuesday, so less than a week. No, not less than a week. Exactly a week's time. We'll be playing it this time next week. We'll be playing it.
Yeah.
And it'll be my Grimwatch versus your
Exiled
Exiled Dead.
Ooh.
So Electro Ghouls versus just your bog standard ghouls.
Your bog standard ghoul, really. Stan Norton said he would be great to see any old world Empire troops, but then again he'd be all over any kind of old world sort of stuff. And I think we'd both like to see more Cities of Sigmar stuff. Cities of Sigmar is definitely one of those armies. If it were ever to come out, we'd both be probably quite interested in. Both be going, yeah. But yeah.
I had no children and no life. I would be there and I'd be buying everything and I'd be getting it and I'd be painting it.
Yeah.
But I would have to give up every other hobby thing I do, I think, if I was going to do that. Maybe I should. Maybe I should just do that.
Yeah, you know you want to.
Give it up. Give up. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, if they did release a Cities of Sigmar thing, you've got enough models that we could proxy a Cities of Sigmar army for a tester game and see how it went before we bothered dedicating any time or resources to it.
Almost certainly true. That is almost certainly true. But you can't beat having new models.
That is true. That is true.
And there's going to be, you just know, I could bring out my infantry on square bases, a gajillion of them, but you just know that they're going to have some crazy flying steam tank, or some new
some kind
AOSified
of war monument thing that's going to be pulled by like a horde of flagellants with some bloke on the top, half dragon, half whatever the hell, firing lightning from his eyes.
Exactly. So I whilst I do take your point that I could proxy them, I just can't do it without doing it. And also, every now and again, I get the models out and I painted them. I spent a long time painting them, but they just, because of the advance in plastics and all that kind of stuff, they just look a bit rubbish.
It's a bit
and
like
indeed my painting.
It's a bit like we were talking about Gav Thorpe, because he did not Gav Thorpe, the other guy who did the dioramas, who would have released that one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Mike McVeigh.
Mike McVeigh.
Yeah, and he released that ogre for the latest Golden Demon, which does look fantastic. And he did that old diorama with all of the Warhammer Quest models in it. And I remember that looking fantastic, and there were all the different levels of the manor, and then it went down into the sewer, and then there was the underground crypt bit and all that. And I remember that being fantastic, and then I went away and found pictures of it, and I thought, oh dear. The idea is great, the painting that's there is great, the models are there, but yeah, they're not as good as they used to be.
There are two idiots a while back saying they were all getting into too much stuff. Absolutely, and we will never change.
Who were those two idiots? I'm sure they were familiar.
We will never change. There is always. This is not called the Shiny Gaze podcast for nothing.
Exactly.
There is always. I think I might have said this last time. I've been reading a book that just happens to be set in Dark Ages Ireland, and I've been looking at all these Irish historical models and board games.
There's just too many shiny things and not enough time and money to enjoy them all, and that's the real problem.
Time. Well, it's time, but the money doesn't feature because it's time. If I had the time, then there wouldn't be enough money.
I think I was going to say, I think the money does feature after a point. Because I didn't mean like, money's no object. It just meant it doesn't. It does the equation at the moment because the lack of time is too high. Or the lack of time is too high. It makes sense. So time is too low in the equation to actually bother for the money to even come into it. Yeah.
At this point.
There's definitely an aspect to it all now these days with the Warhammer models and everything coming out that I look at it and I go, I would buy that in an instant if I thought remotely I'd have any time to put it together. But I've learnt enough now to know I won't put it together, I won't paint it, I won't play with it, and that does stop me most of the time buying stuff.
Yeah.
I say that knowing full well that I have these currently from the Warhammer Plus.
They're nice and shiny, almost like they're still in a shrink wrap.
But they still
Yeah,
are
I
in their shrink
convinced
wrap.
myself.
Unsurprisingly, they're still in their shrink wrap, and so they're sitting
I
there.
convinced myself I did. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't. I can't complain, but we got Into the Dark, didn't we? And I've got the Recruit models sitting up on the side because I haven't looked at those yet, and I've got some Horus Heresy models up there that I haven't painted yet, and can't complain because
I painted one.
Yeah, I know.
I painted one Into the Dark model.
So
I'm going to then do the rest now, as well as everything else. I mean, it's almost there is Narwood coming too, so that's going to require some painting.
yeah.
And I assume you're going to be trying to get your mitts on the skeleton.
Oh yes, I would very much like that if we can. Yeah. So I can't complain, but at least it has stopped me buying most stuff. Although that Skaven army did come out, especially that Skaven army, and I was kind of watching that with more than a little bit of interest.
I kind of switched my attention to board games because board games they feel more accessible because they don't require all the pre-planning, pre-prep. You haven't got to paint them and all that kind of stuff. But I have since realised, and they're generally cheaper as well. But I've since realised I don't play those too much either. But this week I did play the Lord of the Rings living card game with my son again. So that was an exciting moment for me. Got very excited.
So
so moving on. Go on.
Quickly, Gav Plays Games said that he thought some kind of Heroes in the Cursed City warband would be quite good for Underworlds. That would be quite cool. I suspect, though, that once GW releases a model, they're done with trying to, reuse that model in another system. Although they did with Underworlds and Warcry, so can't complain about that. But other than that, they're like...
I think, isn't that just to get more people... That's to get more people to buy the small games, isn't it? Because they can then use it in the big games.
I think so, yeah.
They don't tend to come the other way. Although they've repurposed models for some of the Sparta type sets.
A little bit, but I suspect that they did them originally for the start sets, and they released them because they could sell them in general AOS as well. So, yeah.
Well, okay. But
I don't think they would release something for AOS.
We just talked about cross-promoting there, but it doesn't matter. It's not important.
Yeah, I just don't think they would release something for AOS or a separate box game and then use it in something like Underworlds. I think
Okay, well, the things for the AOS, like the things that ended up in the Reapers, Race Reapers, and those Stormcast have come down from AOS.
But did they come out in AOS first, or they actually released in AOS first? I know that they were on display, but were they actually... Oh, okay, right. Stand corrected there.
Yeah.
Tom D says, hi guys. Hello, Tom D, and War Machines on as well. Greetings to you both.
Tom D. Yes, hello to everybody watching tonight. It's great to have you on.
So that's a bit of Underworld. That's a bit of Underworlds out of the way. What's next on the list, Robin?
Well, next on the list is our Marlowe moment, Peter.
Marlowe moment. We need some kind of thing to play for the Marlowe moment. Here we go.
Yeah. I can't hear it.
You're never going to hear it. You're never going to be able to hear it. But you can put it in afterwards.
Right.
For the podcasters, boys and girls at home.
I will add it to the podcast. And then it kind of ruined it because both times. Well, the whole time we don't talk about it being on the podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe I'll cut that bit out. Anyway, the Marlowe moment this week is very topical. In your opinion, what makes Underworld such a great game to play? We'll try and wrap it up quite quickly. But this is a question asked by Mr. Marlowe, one of our patrons.
What makes it such a great game to play? I think for me, it's the fact that it's a very simple game, relatively speaking. There's not tons of stuff going on, and it's a fairly short game, which means you don't have to invest a lot into it. You can sort of sit there and go, let's play a game of Underworlds, and if you're not recording it and you're not like us and blathering on for ages, you can play it in about half an hour, and then boom, you can do something else if you want.
Yeah. I think it is... the reason I think it's a great game to play, firstly it's on hexes, which I thought was going to be Pete's go-to answer, but...
I just assume everything's on hexes these days, you see. I'm just like, surely that's what everything is.
But I think it hits that kind of war game kick in a quick format. You get that tactical feeling that you're... In fact, in some ways, I find it more tactical than the big AOS type games because I I haven't played them for a long time, to be fair, but I don't find them very tactical. I find it literally is just, it's just almost not luck, but I don't really know what any of the decisions I'm making are when I play those games, and they may or may not come off. But in Underworld, there is definite objectives and goals and planning in a much tighter format, and that's why I like them. That's why I like it.
You could argue if you knew more about AOS and its mechanics, you might know a bit more about what you were doing.
I totally take that.
But I do like the fact that the objectives make it much clearer. Do X, Y, Z. Whereas in AOS it is mostly
and I think the tighter, more controlled board space as well. I just think adds to that whole feeling of being more in control of the tactics.
Yeah.
You can only do certain things, I can only do certain things. And although, yes, when you're deck building, there is some pre-preparation, it's likely to be balanced across the board, whereas actually in AOS, it could be completely, your opponent might just be able to just stamp you into the ground no matter what you do. And I don't ever feel like that in Underworld, even though I often get stamped into the ground when playing.
I mean, the AOS game I played during Agents Con was fun. It did feel a bit like, in that, because you just bring your army and you've got your army book and stuff, it did almost feel a bit like you were unfair sometimes. If you were like, oh, by the way, I do this, which means I can then do this and that, and I also get this, and I add this on, and your opponent's kind of sitting there just going, wow, okay, guess I'll just give up now then, kind of feel, whereas in Underworlds you don't feel that as much, because it's like, okay, you're playing that card, but I could play a similar card and it wouldn't be much different.
Yeah. And that's why I don't feel it's tactical so much. And people might argue that being able to work out all those combinations is tactical. But, I almost felt like this. I have felt like this at Underworld in times, but I almost felt like the bigger games, it's a case of if you remember your modifiers better than your opponent remembers his modifiers, then you'll win the game.
I think it is partially that, and I think it's also about building that optimum sort of thing. If I want to take this hero and this unit and this magic spell and this magic weapon, because then they all add up to give you this dirty combo. It was a bit like that Moonstone combination that I saw on the Discord that Matt mentioned the other day. If you take 3 specific Moonstone models, you can do a thing where you move one up, then you use another character to trigger their ability, which automatically fails. That means that the person who's just the person whose ability's just failed automatically can pick somebody else, and both they and the other person both die straight away. And then you can use the third model to bring that model back from the dead. So you can just use it like as an immediate assassination of just taking out a model and then bringing your model back again. So it's that kind of thing of...
Yeah, I have to say Moonstone I feel a little bit. I think that's part of the freeform thing. I find Moonstone, again, we haven't played it that much, but I don't really feel like I understand the tactics of Moonstone, and it is just a case of just having fun with the cards.
Yeah.
And I haven't really got to the bottom of the tactics, whereas Underworld, very quickly you start to see there are tactics. You can block access, you can push people into the right places or the wrong places, etc., etc. And it's all, every action has, and you've only got 12 actions in the game, kind of thing. So you have to really think about that on what you're doing. So I think that's why Underworld is such a great game. You put your hand over me.
I'm trying to get my stupid camera to focus on me so podcasters don't come out. But I'm slightly out of focus, I think, and my background is more in focus, which is really annoying me.
Right, we've got a quick segue from Sterling. I'm going to have to say, Sterling, I'm just going to put how you spell segue, like that, in the chat.
I'm not interested.
That's a segue is a thing. That's a thing.
That's the thing you ride.
And so which of our favourite aeronautical squadrons, fleets, airplanes, whatever? Well, if anybody says anything other than the Orcs, then they're wrong.
I like I've always had a soft spot for the Necrons, so they're definitely my number one pick.
Yeah, I like the Orcs, and I also like the ones that look a bit like air jump jets.
Oh, yeah.
The Imperial ones. I think maybe ones they're pretty cool. Yeah. Right. Okay. So next, then, moving on, we've got the. I put Night War on the, which is something else entirely.
You put the what on?
On the agenda. Night Wars.
Oh dear.
The
Well,
Night
doesn't sound
Wars
good.
release. The Call City Night Wars. I don't want to say very much about this. But I don't know if you've seen our unboxing. I did an unboxing video. Games Workshop sent me a copy. I'm obviously on the list to get that. For some reason. We were quite vocal in our discontent about the Call City release. And we've never played it because we were going to, but it was during lockdown sort of time-ish. It was quite difficult to get together, and then it just vanished off the face of the earth, and it was just really badly handled. Games Workshop beefed it up, hyped it up, then just, they were sold out, and then they didn't. It's like it didn't exist. We had a running joke on the Patreon Discord of, what's City, because you just couldn't find it anywhere. You couldn't. Games Workshop didn't talk about it, and they're bringing it back, and that's great. And obviously, I hadn't realised quite how many people enjoy the game. So I reviewed the Night Wars box. I say reviewed. I'll do a quick read through on quite good at what it does, but it's got its faults. You can go and watch the video if you want to see what I thought of it. But it's sold out already.
Yeah.
So
like
I
within
thought people
minutes
would be like,
almost.
people would be like, well, why do we need this for? I barely play Curse. Nobody plays. I can't get hold of them all. And it's sold out. And I just was so surprised by that. And I think people were going on about there are content providers going on about the death of Games Workshop and, they've ruined it and whatever. But if that's sold out, now maybe Games Workshop only made 10 copies and that's why it's sold out. I don't know. But that is sold out. There is no way that GW using it because it didn't even have any miniatures in it.
Yeah.
It wasn't left. But it didn't have any miniatures. It was for a game that they barely supported. And that rightly would have irritated people behind, and it still sold out. Which makes me wonder, what could GW actually get away with selling?
They could probably.
I don't know. Would they just start gift wrapping turds and sending them out in the post? And people will still buy them if they hyped it up enough. I don't know. That's not to say that it is a turd, but they just feel like they can't do anything wrong.
You say that, but is it a limited edition turd? Because then I might be interested.
Yeah, it's Forge World only.
No, I'm not interested then. In that case, I'm out.
Yeah, to Titan. So anyway, that was my thought on Night Wars. I was absolutely gobsmacked, I think, because we're on good terms with Hobby Herbert, who runs the excellent Willing Games tech side, and he said they'd sold out, and that was by about 10:15. They'd sold out their allocation. Now they maybe only allocated one copy, but they sold out their allocation in record time, and I'm just...
It's mad. It is just mad.
So other things that might have not have sold out would include the I forgot what they're called, the League of Votan.
League of Votan, or Votan, or
The
however
League of
Votan.
Votan. I put 3 A's in it.
Rubbish space dwarves.
182. Sorry?
Rubbish space dwarves, basically.
Space dwarves, yeah.
They're not squats. They're not squats because they're not bikers, so they're not squats.
They're not bikers.
They're not bikers. The old Scots used to be like dwarf bikers. They had trikes and they had like big bushy beards and sunglasses on and stuff like that. They were clearly like Hell's Angels biker dwarves in space. These new ones are rubbish.
Old Angel biker dwarf in space. That sounds like a B-movie waiting to happen.
And some of the vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't.
rubbish.
I've kind of given up following much about 40k because, as somebody else pointed out, there's just not enough time. Well, we pointed out there's not enough time or money to pursue everything. So I kind of, I kind of know what's happening, but I don't really. I'm giving up trying to follow it. But you couldn't not follow this because of the outcry about this League of Votan. Yeah, and then GW released this funny, in inverted commas, video about about the situation, which is that basically they made it too good. And people were up in arms about the fact they made it too good. There was an outcry, and then people made it. Well, not everybody was happy with the video. I mean, I thought it was quite funny. It was quite funny, and I would say unprecedented that GW would do something like that. I can't think. I mean, like, if you take their stance on Curse City, which was to pretend that there was absolutely nothing wrong, it was all brilliant.
Just deny there was even anything had happened to
it. Or even did the game existed, yes. And then, so there's a marked difference in 12 to 18 months, I can't remember, the City came out. And I was surprised to see them do that.
It really does sort of... they really are opening up at that point and holding their hands up and saying, we screwed up, we've done something which is so bad, obviously bad, that, you know, we've got to come forward and do something about it now, because there was just so much online outcry about it all. You've got a... Yeah, that's a lot for a company to do, to basically say we've really cocked up here.
Yeah, but do you think they should have done?
Well, it's a tough one, really. It's I watched the video by Ash from Guerrilla Games, and I kind of agree with him. So I kind of think they shouldn't have done anything about it. I kind of figure they should just... I mean, back previous seasons of GW, before the current version of GW, in previous iterations, they would have just released an army and gone, there you go. Don't care if you don't like it, really. We're not doing anything about it. We probably won't even release all the models for it anyway. So you know. But it's that thing that now they're really responsive and stuff like that, and I kind of... I can see why some people, more casual people like you or I, could get more annoyed with them releasing something and almost straight away going, actually we've changed some stuff in it. Because you're like, I've just bought this and you're already poncing around with the numbers and things like that. But I can see why people who in the more competitive sphere, like the honest wargamer who follows and tracks a lot of these things, and general competitive players, would be happy with it. But I can see both sides of the argument here.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. No,
You agree completely with me, and you're going to buy me some chocolate.
Well, I could do that. But I'm in two minds, because I do think that it's good that GW are listening to the community. I think that's good.
Can't deny
in Ash's video, he talks about a game which I've never played called War Machine. Is it called? I think, or something like that.
War Machine, yeah.
And that he was saying basically, at one point, it wasn't quite a parity with 40k, but it had a big following. Yeah. And then they decided it was going to be, they were going to focus on the competitive market, and they kept balancing, kind of killed the game. And Ash's fear or worry is that GW are going to do the same with 40k by just trying to balance it all the time. And he said ultimately you can spend all the time balancing this stuff, but that doesn't get you any money. What gets you money is people buy models. So they should focus entirely on making models and not worrying about balance, which I don't agree with. And he didn't quite say that. But if you took his argument to its logical conclusion, it was they could, as long as they keep making cool stuff, people will keep buying it. And there obviously is some truth to that. But I think if they keep making cool stuff, but the new cool stuff is really, really much better than the old cool stuff, then people are start to get pissed off, whether they're competitive or not. Because at the end of the day, we all have a little bit of competitiveness in us. And we might love the Tau aesthetic and army and whatever, but if you're going to bring your Tau army to the table and every time you play somebody who's brought out an army that's been made in the last 2 years, it annihilates you, you're going to stop playing because it's not any fun. Is it?
I mean, I would say that GW have been doing that for the last couple of decades, though. That they have been making sure the newest thing coming out is the latest hotness. Maybe not so much in AOS. I think I've read that in AOS, armies are just as late to come out and be absolute hot mess, nonsense, rubbish as they are the next most overpowered thing. But I think they've been doing that in most of their in most of their games since Dot. They haven't changed that, and people still keep buying the new stuff because it's new and shiny. I think it does piss people off. I think some people do get very annoyed with it, but I don't think it annoys more people than it attracts or keeps pulling back into the game and making them buy stuff.
It's unbalanced.
Sorry?
It doesn't annoy people that it's unbalanced. That
No, I think
the
it
new stuff
does.
is too good.
I think it does, but
Right,
I don't think that stops people buying stuff.
Right, okay.
They
So
buy
does that
anyway.
mean that this... I mean, I haven't really caught massively onto this, the problems of the League of Photons. Were they just too good then, do you think? They just were too advanced?
So, some of the stuff
Because they said
had,
they play tested them against the other new things, and they were okay against the other new things. When that ties into that continual, what do they call it? What's that? Scope creep. That's the wrong phrase. Power creep.
Power creep. Yeah. Yeah, I think some of their excuses were they played against a couple of other armies that had come out recently that were also quite overpowered. So I think they maybe. Yeah. It sounds like their playtesting wasn't very thorough on some of it, that they should have been pitching it. The tester in me immediately sits there and thinks, okay, you've got a range of armies, you know some of them are really good and you know some of them are really rubbish, so you need to play test against a selection across that board, really rubbish ones, really good ones, and make sure it doesn't always beat the really rubbish ones and it doesn't always lose to the really good ones. And that sounds like asking for the impossible, but that's the task that you've got to have when you're doing that kind of thing, is come up with that kind of balance somehow, and it feels like they missed that completely this time around.
Do you kind of feel that playtesting is not their strength? Having played Underworld for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I do feel they lack some of that, and I remember reading some of that they were getting rid of lots of their playtesters because there would be leaks and other things happening that they didn't like, so they were getting rid of lots of external playtesters and keeping it all internal. But unfortunately, you can only hire so many internal playtesters who, you know, are going to play it different ways. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a task I envy, because I think it is. I think ultimately it's impossible to do it all the time.
Yeah.
And I think there's somebody commented somewhere, I can't remember where. Nobody did deliberately. You know what I mean? There might have been mistakes made. Nobody deliberately brought out something that was too powerful or was going to upset people. Nobody does that.
I'm pretty certain that they weren't sitting around the table. You know, the board of directors weren't sitting there all going, we need to make Votan incredibly overpowered so everybody buys them, and then we can release the next incredibly overpowered warband. I don't think it's an intentional thing that way. I'm sure there was probably some pressure to try and make sure that the latest army was whizzy and fantastic and had loads of cool stuff, but when you do that it can get easily carried away into being over the top at the same time. And I think it's Hanlon's razor, isn't it? You know, don't assume malignant, or don't assume it's on purpose or whatever when it's basically just someone being stupid.
Yeah, it's something like that, isn't it?
Hanlon's razor is, I'm going to quote it now so I get it right. Where the hell is it? I can't even find it now. Never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. And stupidity might be a strong word, but I think, it was more people cocked up than people sat there and went, excellent, we'll make them incredibly overpowered and everyone will buy them.
I mean, you see it across other games. I mean, not other games, but the Marvel Crisis Protocol, the new Malicious model apparently is just crazy and everybody's saying it's broken. I don't know whether they're really good, but the new Sentinel model is ridiculous in size and scale compared with everything else. That feels like it's gone the same way. And so, I don't think it's a unique problem. They only tested it against the 2 other armies. Yeah, see that just feels like a bad idea.
I don't know if that is. I mean, we're only going by kind of what they've said, how much that's true versus, I'm sure they've probably spent a lot of their time against 2 other armies, and if that's the case, that is mostly stupid rather than malicious, because that's just, again, putting my tester hat on, just doing testing against 2 other armies. I don't think anybody would sit there and look at that and go, that seems like a really adequate way of testing this. It's like, surely anybody else could have sat there and gone, maybe more than 2 would be a good idea.
It does also make me wonder, and I've wondered this before, whether 40k really it should be a competitive game, should be played competitively, because it's got so many moving parts. It's impossible to balance, and it's so exploitable.
Yeah,
it's impossible to be fair, and so you basically are asking for. If they were MP, they would fill out the best expense account. You know what I mean? It's basically it's accountancy by any other name, or tax evasion by tax avoidance rather by any other name. It kind of just the game, the breaking. I've mentioned this before. I used to find it in Underworld too. It's a competition to see whether you can break the rules.
Absolutely.
Within the rules, and Underworld style like that, it's basically the best players who build the best decks are basically trying to find loopholes and bits to exploit where rules interactions are a bit quirky, and that can be a sport if you want it to be. Well, maybe it shouldn't be played excessively competitively.
That's why I kind of never seen the point in playing competitive 40k or competitive AOS, or really even competitive like Underworlds. Any of those things I think are largely pointless, because what is good now, or what you do now to win, isn't going to be true in 6 months, possibly even 3 months, because GW change rules, they change armies, they bring out new stuff. If someone came along to you now and said, I was the world champion Warhammer 5th edition player in 1998, no one would give a shit, because it means nothing now. It literally means I played, I was great at Atari. No one cares, old man, go away and die. It's the past, and if you win something now like that, it's just, I found the loophole and the way to exploit the game to be able to win in this situation, in this one point in time, which isn't even relevant 6 months later even.
I sort of see what you mean. I mean, everybody will remember, say, Usain Bolt, but and he in history, or other people like Sebastian Coe. But that said, some winning an Underworld tournament, or not Underworld, so a Warhammer 40k table tournament against Usain Bolt would be where you took the buff because you found a loophole and nothing said anywhere. You couldn't take the buff.
But the difference. The difference there is, with Usain Bolt, with chess masters and that kind of thing, the game didn't change, the competition didn't change. It was you just had to run 100 meters as fast as you freaking could. There's no change in that. It's not like someone came along and they said, actually this time round for this Olympics we're going to allow rocket boots, and like next time round they're like, actually we're not going to allow rocket boots now, but everyone can take as many steroids as they like, so fucking go crazy. It was the same every time. I mean, there was a period where
you've got all these drugs. You can take whichever one you want before the race.
I reckon off topic.
You pick.
I reckon off topic, different thing. But I reckon they should do an Olympics where they just allow people to take as many performance-enhancing drugs as possible and just see how frigging crazy it can get. Just to see, the 100 meters in 3.9 seconds. But they did explode just after they got over the finish line.
I felt like there's some health implications there that perhaps probably ought to not be explored.
I'd be okay. I mean, if people want to do that, it'd be a bit like wrestling, WWE, where you just have these giants of men doing ridiculous things. But it basically, because of that, I see very little point in GW trying to balance things, because it's going to change in 3-6 months or whatever, because they're going to change it. So why bother worrying about it now? Just go, oh well, and move on. You mentioned near the start.
While we're going off topic, sorry. While we're going off topic, I just want to carry on the sporting thing. Downhill skiing, right? But not where they do time trials, where everybody goes at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would just be go. Whoa!
It just see who finishes. It'd be like Destruction Derby, but on ice.
Exactly. Yeah.
With a jump at the end.
No, sorry. So
just taking each other out. I'd pay to see that. Pay to watch that. But it's a bit like you said at the start. Ash was saying about how War Machines, like, they focused really heavily on competitive, and like, where are they now? And there was also, I can't remember the people who did Guild Ball, and they canned Guild Ball because they made it really balanced, and basically their excuse was, it's too balanced now, so we're going to stop doing it. Like, I mean,
supposedly nobody bought anything, which I suppose
yeah.
is kind of Ash's point, which is, if you
Yeah.
balance it perfectly and you keep releasing balancing, because CW doing these 3-month, I can't remember what they call them, balance bits or something.
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be a good thing. You won't ever need to buy a new army because yours will be just as good, which is an interesting point because in some ways part of me thinks, well, chess is a good game and nobody's changed that. But at the same time, you don't want GW to go out of business or the company that you like to go out of business, and buying new armies is nice.
Yep. And actually, I think.
I mean, I suppose you could argue. Sorry.
Go on, now after you.
I was saying you could argue that if everything was balanced, you wouldn't matter which army you would win more.
Yeah, but I suspect if everything was balanced enough, there would be certain things you would always take. There'd be certain things you wouldn't take. It's a bit like in Underworlds. If everything, when they really start to get the championship setups balanced, you would see the same warbands a lot of the time, the same cards all of the time. There was no variant. There was some people would try crazy new things every now and then, but it would only work with certain warbands in certain ways, and people would then find ways to counter it and stuff. But yeah, I think if you balance it all, it's going to get really boring. And I think part of GW's thing that's kept them going all this time is the fact that they haven't in the past deliberately tried to make things too balanced. They've just released stuff into the wild and just, quite often in the past, before Roundtree came on board, they've just left it fans you wouldn't ever get a response from GW when they said, oh, you've released squats, they're overpowered. You just get, I don't care, don't buy them or buy lots of them, whatever you want to do.
Because I think Ashton used to let the tournament organisers sort it out, so they would restrict stuff or whatever.
And I think that's the way to do it.
It's an interesting one. It's definitely an interesting one, and I'm not sure where I feel on it, because I think I said to you when we were talking about it, there's part of me that doesn't want to get involved in a game where I could buy. I'll use Tower again because I quite like it. Maybe you don't, but to buy a Tower army, but it actually would just be shit, and therefore I would never win a game with it. And I've got no idea when I start. It's a bit like when you have a smaller scale, when you start Necromunda or something, you just build the models, the ones that look cool, but actually they're rubbish, and that means that basically every game you're going to end up being cut to pieces.
Yeah.
Mashed, just because you set out wrong at the start. I don't like that. That puts me off. That's one of the reasons why I've never really wanted to play AOS or 40,000, because I just feel like, not that I want to win, but in order to not lose, if that makes sense, I feel like I have to have knowledge of the game, too much knowledge of the game, from the outset when I don't even know what I'm doing. When I literally, and I don't want to, because they're not cheap, are they? I don't want to spend £60 getting a unit of Marines for them just to be crap.
Yeah.
Because that's a total waste of money and time, because you paint them all as well.
Yeah,
now there are some people who don't mind that, and they think that they like the narrative side of it. But I don't want somebody to go, oh, and actually I've got this trick for just decimate them before you even ruin it.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why whenever you see a new game come out, or whenever people are new to a game, Kill Team, 40k, OAS, one of the first things generally they ask is, what's good? What are the good armies? And they'll immediately be met by two kinds of people. One will be you want to get this army and do this and this and this, and you'll be overpowered and you'll win all your games. And then you've got the other people who are like, it doesn't matter, just play what you like. It's like, it's all well and good saying play what you like, and I definitely ascribe to that way of thinking. Buy the models you like, rule of cool, play what you want, and have fun with it. But it's hard to have fun with it when every time you sit down for a game, you get your face kicked in.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose taking it sort of back to what you were saying earlier, if you played Moonstone and you just took the models that looked nice, and then you went to a competition and everybody took that broken combination you were talking about, you'd have a shit time.
Yeah.
Even if you weren't very competitive, you'd have a shit time, because it's like, oh, well, my model's dead this way. Oh, another one's dead now. Oh, another one's dead. And that, that would be the end. It wouldn't be fun.
I guess the key there is
so
don't play competitive if you're not, if you don't want to get into that game.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, but and again, I haven't got a lot of experience with this, so maybe what I'm saying isn't true. But I felt like this with Underworld. Just because you're not playing competitively doesn't mean you're not playing. Doesn't mean that people. It's hard not to play competitively. You know what I mean? You can not be a dick, but it's hard. It's hard to. When you built a deck in Underworld, you always built the best deck that you could build. Yeah. You didn't tend to build something that you didn't think was very good, if you see what I mean. So, and people will say, "Oh, it doesn't matter what the card rotation is because that's just for competitive play." Well, the reality is, if you go to the club with your warband, everybody's going to expect you to be playing whatever the latest way to play is. Okay, the water's a bit muddy now, but in those days, it was like, well, everybody. If you turn up with Ready for Action and Time Trap during the Peacegrave era, then you're not going to get a game.
Yeah, I mean, War Machine said you can still want to win without being competitive. And that's true, but if you want to win, but you don't do anything to try and enhance your chances, you're probably always going to be wanting to win without actually winning. And it's like that, getting a balance somewhere between not being uber competitive, but still being able to, from a casual angle, have a chance to win. I think it depends on who you play in the area you're playing. And obviously, when we play each other, there's a level of competitiveness, but there's a level of casualness. We both kind of want to win, but we're not too fussed about it for the most part, unless we both had a shit day, and then you would lose 2 games on the trot, and that can be a bit annoying. But
well, you both know that the other person hasn't tried to exploit a loophole. Do you know what I mean? We wouldn't do it. Or one of us would say, well, actually, you don't want to put that in. I was thinking of, I can't say that. But you don't want to put that there, or you've just moved that onto the wrong hex, or something like that. So that the other person, because there's no fun winning that way either. But just pull back to what I was saying. That although I don't be in a world where I could just pick my army and then find that 10 other armies are much better than it, I should have picked something else. Equally, because I'm fussy. Equally, what puts me off is knowing that there's all these ridiculous FAQs and balancing things, and the points have changed. And that is just as off-putting. So I don't know what the right answer is, because that's just off-putting. It's like, well, you've got this book, but you also need to look here to see whether you can still play that combination of things. And I don't know how any complicated game gets around that. I'm not sure it can. And probably I should just go off and choose an army and just play that. And at some point, it will have its day in the sun and be quite good.
I think that's it. It all comes down to really whether you think you're going to be in a position where you're going to be going and playing people in what could even be remotely considered a competitive thing, or not. And I think we could be quite happy and safe in the fact that whatever we bought and played with, it wouldn't be competitive, so we wouldn't have to worry about the opponent. But sometimes it can be quite hard, because we've definitely had this problem in Underworlds, where one person plays one warband, someone else plays another, and one is just better than the other. And there's no way around it. It's not that you play them, you deliberately play them in a fashion that abuses a rule. It's just some warbands outclass other warbands, and then whoever's got the worst warband, you're just going to lose. Now in Underworlds, that's not as big an investment, because you just bought a warband. You could buy another one, you can change your deck, you can do a lot of other stuff. But in 40k or AOS, it's like, well, I spend £250 on this army, and I basically get my face rubbed in the dirt every time I play with it, whoever I play, whether it's casual or not. And after a while, that's just not
I
really fun.
hate in games. I hate in games, and you know this from when you've played me. I hate it when you're sitting on whatever game it is you're playing, and there's just nothing you can do.
Yeah.
It's literally just like, well, I just have no options, and that can happen in Underworld.
Yep.
And you just, and I've sort of talked about it before, but you just like, if I just get a glory, then I can at least do something. I'm probably not going to win, but I can at least do something. I can get part of the way to my plan, even though the plan has gone shot to pieces. I remember playing a game with you, and I every time I thought I'd get a glory, you'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to play this reaction," which means you don't get that. And I just was absolutely devastated by the end, I think, because I just thought I just didn't enjoy that at all, because I just could not play the game, and nobody wants to buy into something and then find that happens to them every week.
I think realistically, I don't think you're ever going to have that a lot. And I think even in AOS or 40k, if you're in a group of people and you're all just buying stuff for fun, I don't think you're ever going to come up with that.
Probably not. That was more of that's what I hate in games.
But that, yeah, I mean, I hate that as well. And yeah, I definitely think that, it's that kind of thing that you just kind of think, well, I don't want to risk it. I don't want to buy into it. I don't want to spend X amount on it because I don't want to risk having something that's rubbish. But at the same time, you're probably not a lot of the time going to have something that's that rubbish, and sometimes it's just going to come down to dice. And there's always somebody, when you have larger groups of people at gaming clubs and stuff, there's always one guy who's always got the latest awesome thing which he'll be able to wipe out the floor with everyone with. But the reality is often they never get around to gluing it together or painting it anyway, so before they move on to the next thing, and everybody else just keeps chugging with whatever they're doing.
The reason I don't play AOS is I can't cope with the number of modifiers and things and interlocking components of the rules. That's why I don't play it.
I think that could depend on the warbands. I definitely didn't have as bad a time when I played AOS at Agents Con 22. It wasn't as bad.
You talked about it afterwards when we were in the pub afterwards. You talked about the various things you had to remember, like the contagion points and the I can't remember what else, picnic points. I can't remember what they were. And I just thought that to me it just sounds like let's play accounting of Sigmar.
There was a little bit of that, but that, again, it can depend on the warband. Not every warband has that many things that do that kind of thing. So yeah, right. Swings and roundabouts, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'll play the breeze block warband. Well, that though, it just stands there, doesn't do anything.
Well, to an extent, sometimes you get
like very tough. It's got a lot of wounds.
Yeah, I mean, Stormcast could be a bit like that. It's just, they don't do a lot special. They're just dead hard. And
I bet they do. If you get deep down into it. Although you played Stormcast, didn't you?
Yeah, Matt had Stormcast, and he had like a special where when people die they explode and they might do some mortal wounds. But I think that was about the main special thing he had going. So there wasn't masses there.
Fair enough. So I think on balance that the video games which we did was good, because I think it shows that they care about their players. Now you can argue that they shouldn't care about their players, but I think probably on balance it's better to know that a company does care about what their audience thinks than doesn't care about it.
Yeah.
They get a lot of negative press, and I think we have talked about we might do a future talk about what they do right. They get a lot of bad press, and they get a lot of they don't care. But I think it kind of shows that actually they do listen and they do care, and they have made a mistake and they hold their hands up. Now you can argue whether they should have made that mistake as well, but I think on balance it's a good thing.
Yeah,
they did it.
I agree. I think overall, it was a good thing, and I think most of the changes they were going to make were like adjusting points values, which isn't the end of the world. If it's not rewriting base rules and stuff like that, it's just saying actually this unit costs 250 points now, not 150 points and stuff like that. That's not so bad.
Yeah, but they do that anyway, don't they? They do that anyway over time with various handbooks and things. I mean, yeah, I could see why it's frustrating if if you want to, you've bought the army, you know what you want. But of course, their argument was they did it before the bulk of the models were out, and people weren't buying into. They hadn't already bought the stuff, so they can now make an informed decision about whether they actually want the whatever it is.
Yeah. So Sterling says that he thinks
Robin,
that
I'm
you're
right.
That nobody wants to get into a game system and go, this looks really cool, and now my next attention is going to be someone's bitch. Everyone wants to play as an equal. I think there is a desire for it to be vaguely equal,
Egalitarian.
Yeah. But not. You're never going to be able to get stuff completely level, and I think if you do strive for that, you will kill a game. I think, as has been proven now with War Machine and Dreadball or whatever it's called and stuff like that.
But yeah, I'm still not sure I totally agree because of chess. But of course, chess has less moving parts. So I do think you are going to go bust if you spend all of your time trying to balance your game and not any time making new things for it.
True, but
because
also
you basically
with chess, nobody owns chess. Nobody's making money off it.
no, exactly, yeah.
So
yeah.
chess, you can literally make yourself in 5 minutes with some bits of paper. No one's going to make any money out of that. So you could argue.
Well, that's true. So it depends on whether yes, if your game relies on people to keep making components for it, then you do need that company to stay in business.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of people don't want GW to go out of business. I think a lot of people might piss.
No, even the people who say they don't really, because they'll have nothing to do. They have nothing to talk about.
What are they going to complain about? They go, oh look, nobody's released anything this week.
What will Discourse make videos about if GW go bust? They'll be able to do like, I was right, and now I've got nothing else to say.
Goodbye, click. There we go.
Yeah.
I mean, if nothing else, GW provide fuel for people to bitch and moan about as well as to enjoy. And I think I agree with you that the video overall was a good move. I don't think they want to kill themselves over constantly tweaking things all the time, because that might put a lot of people off. But yeah, I think they did the right thing.
You know what else GW do, which is really good for the last 7 minutes, and I think we'll come back to this in a fuller podcast. But they do, and I think this might be the best thing that they do, and that is the Golden Demon Award.
Yeah, do like that.
You could argue about rules changes and things like that, but the pure brilliance of the Golden Demon Award. Now, obviously, the finalising is slightly subjective, but that I imagine you go to a Golden Demon Award event and everybody is it's like a celebration of hobby rather than a competition of hobby.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? You look at if you haven't seen it yet, Warhammer community pages have put up today the Golden Demon Award. I think it's every single category, the first 3 placed models, aren't they?
I've brought them up on the screen now and just sort of slowly scrolling through them.
They are all effing brilliant, and so not that anybody needs it, but congratulations to everybody who they might need congratulations, but not from me. Congratulations to everybody who took part and entered that. And the Youngbloods ones, I can't remember what the category for Youngbloods is, but it's mad good. And,
the Youngbloods, let's see if we can find them quickly. Youngbloods, I know was because the winner of the Youngbloods, we could see here, was the Lord of the Rings thing being carried, which is just insane.
And how is it they got? Is it 14 under or 14 over? I can't remember. 14 to 18.
Like 14 under or something like that. Yeah.
Just absolutely mentally good.
Yeah, even just like, the bronze was with the Jane Czar model. It's just insane. I'm sure people say, there's no detail on the hair and stuff. Like, shut up, they were 14 years old. You didn't paint that good when you were 14 years old, to get out.
You don't paint that good now.
No,
I would love. I think the Warhammer Fest, and I'm almost tempted to go to Warhammer Fest next time, even though I think probably I wouldn't enjoy it. But I would just love to have been in that room with all those painters. I would assume just celebrating and enjoying it. Each other's work and changing tips and try to novel the model. No, not at all. There's none of that. There's no. You can't cheat Golden Demon Award. You can only do your best. There is no. You can't get the latest. I've got this new paint which enables me to do. You can get different techniques and things that you can't. There's no way of no rules changes that you can interact. You can't exploit a loophole.
The only thing I feel like you might be able to do as a painter to get one over on other painters is to use non-painting methods, like with the Slayer Sword winner, which is on screen now. But apologies to our podcast viewers who can't actually see these at home. But the giant fighting the multi-headed monstery thing. I can't remember the name of it. He's standing in water, which is also like splashing up, and there's all water foam on the surface and things. You know, if you're just a straight painter, you're not going to be able to compete with that.
That's true. That's true, but I think if you're going to the Golden Demon Award, there aren't very many people who are just spray painters.
No, that's true. That is true. Most of them have some level of conversion and modelling and other stuff
Yeah.
about them. All of the jewels were fantastic.
Yes, the jewel. I think that was the best category. The jewel. Again, we won't talk about it too much because you can't see it on the podcast. But check out the Warhammer QG page. I'll try to remember to put a link in the description of the podcast. Because if you haven't seen it, because the level of detail in all of them, but in those the three first, second, and third in the jewel category, was just absolutely phenomenally good.
Even like the dioramas and stuff like that. The Spike magazine one was fantastic. It was like the magazine cover, but the models were there and stuff. And
that might actually be my favourite thing. I didn't even like Blood Bowl, but it was just so incredibly good.
There was things like
you mentioned. Sorry.
Go on.
So you go.
I was just going to say that there was like in the unit category they had some of the models. They had the Skaven, the Skitshanks, claw pack. They had some of those. And they was like leaping down the wall and things like that. They look fantastic.
I thought you'd like that one.
Yeah,
I thought you'd like that one on the wall.
Yeah. There weren't many where you could just see the models and they were just on their bases on a tray. There weren't many of those. Most of them were like in some kind of diorama. So.
Yeah, I think you've got to have an extra level of modelling ability and being able to pick poses for your models, or not poses, but situations for your model that enhance it.
Yeah.
They're just all so good. And I mentioned this when we were looking at the winner, and I also and I'd just been looking on Instagram at some of the things before the winner had been announced. And then also, you said you'd seen it on Tabletop Inquirer, that they mentioned it, that basically it's simultaneously inspiring and utterly demoralising looking at the entries, those winning entries, because I'd love to feel like I was good enough to enter the Golden Demon, but looking at those, I would just be utterly no point in me ever trying. Even I'm possibly Nerdy Rob, one of our former supporters. He painted some these guys, what they called the Grimwatch, what are they? Especially to course. He's got a massive AOS army, I think it was. And he painted. I just happened to notice over the weekend he put one on Instagram, and it's absolutely amazing. And I said, you should enter the Golden Demon, and he was like, no, it's nowhere near good enough for to that effect. And I just thought, my God, his painting is like light years away. And he doesn't think he's going to enter the Golden Demon.
Yeah.
So how good must he be?
They were
and
amazing.
I've been trying to up my painting quality, trying to learn a few techniques and just take a bit more time, and now I just almost wonder why. I was feeling quite pleased with it. And I saw not even the winner, because the winner, like you say, the winner has a level of modelling skill way beyond mine. I have no modelling skill whatsoever. But even just the paint jobs alone, just mine are nowhere near it. Because but I don't have the time or that's not because I don't have the time. I haven't got the time to learn the skills to do it.
Yeah.
I sort of, with painting, I subscribe to the idea that the more you do it, the better you get. It's one of these things that with 10,000 hours of work, you could probably get to some level of mastery. But I'm so far off that.
Yeah, same. It's not worth trying for me personally, because it's just nowhere near good enough for that kind of thing.
I mean, I'm never going to be that level ever. It's not. But I have enjoyed in the last 6 months. I feel like my painting has improved. But I have enjoyed that process of improvement. I'm still way behind most people who paint on our Discord. to be honest. People like John Grant and Johnny.
Yeah. Johnny Malicious.
They just have a level of skill that is beyond mine. But mine is getting better, and I suppose that's really what it's about. And I suppose to a degree, that's what gaming should be about. Really, it's about enjoying yourself and improving. You know, playing Underworld. You don't want to stay the same all the time. You do want to get slightly better.
Yeah, I guess that's the same with any system. If you playing games as well, like 40k or AOS and stuff like that, if you want to get good at them, you've just got to accept that at the start you're not going to be amazing, and you're going to slowly improve over time.
It's like anything, it's like fitness.
Yeah.
Or cooking. My cooking's a lot better than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think mine is.
Nobody's died for 5 years.
Hooray! And the remaining 3 children are all fit and well.
Yeah. I haven't had more children. Well, not that I know of, anyway.
It was more a joke on the others had died off.
So that brings us up to 11 o'clock.
It does, nice and neatly.
Yeah. So thank you for everybody for listening. I don't know how many people have had on. I was hoping the chat would be filled with people all talking about Underworld, but they obviously had nothing else to do tonight. But
yeah.
Thank you for those of you who did trip in and chime in and say hello.
Yeah.
Really good to have you on as always.
It's always nice to have some active listeners. So yeah, if you're watching and listening in the future, do share out anything that you think of, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be back this time next week. We'll hopefully finished by now. We'll have played our second game of our Underworld tournament.
Yep.
So you can see that. On Thursday, we'll be playing Moonstone again. I'm bringing a new lady to the table.
You are.
Tabitha. Tabby the librarian. There she is, look. You got that, Pete? That's what she can do.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I can
I'm
just
looking forward to that. Oh, she's got a red arcane skill.
Ooh. I'm probably going to bring someone like the Vicious Midget or Doug the Flatulent Pug, because why wouldn't I?
Yeah. And so, yeah, we'll be back, and then going forward, we will be entering the Gnarlwood, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that. More than I have looked forward to playing Underworld since Beast Grade.
Yeah,
Because Darkling started to go wrong. Oh, well, the pandemic started, didn't it? But it's only since the pandemic started, it's the most I've looked forward to a new Underworld season. So I'm really thrilled about this for the new Nemesis version. So do stay tuned for more Nemesis action in the future.
Yes, we'll be looking to add that to our channel again and seeing what else we've got coming along. You know, maybe you'll see AOS in the future with some Imperial Age of Cities of Sigmar. You never know.
I will not surrender.
Cool. Well, thank you all for joining us this
Okay.
evening. Stay safe, and we'll see
Cheers,
you soon.
everyone.
Bye.